There's a daylily growing right now in an abandoned farmhouse garden somewhere, and nobody has touched it in 40 years. No water, no fertilizer, no winter protection. And every single July, it blooms like somebody's been babying it all season. Meanwhile, gardeners who fuss over their daylilies every weekend, feeding them, watering them, worrying over them, end up with mushy crowns, floppy leaves, and maybe 3 sad flowers on a plant that should be throwing out 50. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most daylilies don't die from neglect. They die from attention, the wrong kind of attention. By the end of this video, you're going to know the 5 things that actually decide whether your daylily thrives for decades or slowly fades out, and none of them are the tips you've heard 100 times. This isn't water regularly and give it sun. This is the stuff that separates a daylily that survives being completely forgotten from one that dies despite your best efforts. Secret number 4 alone is the reason most people's daylilies bloom beautifully in year 1 and then mysteriously stop, and almost nobody catches it until it's too late. Let's get into it. Number 1. Plant the crown at the right depth. If your daylily is going to fail, this is usually where the failure was locked in, on planting day. And here's the frustrating part. The plant can take 2 or 3 years to show you the mistake. The crown is that pale, firm zone where the green fans of leaves meet the roots. Think of it as the plant's engine room. Every new leaf, every flower scape, every root the plant will ever produce comes out of that crown. And the crown has one non-negotiable demand. It wants to sit no more than 1 inch below the soil surface. Bury it 2 inches down and something sneaky happens. The plant doesn't die right away. It still puts up leaves because it's living off stored energy. But a crown that's buried too deep sits in soil that stays cooler and wetter than the plant can handle, and it responds by refusing to bloom. You get a healthy-looking clump of green straps and 0 flowers, year after year. Bury it deeper still, and in a wet season, the crown simply rots. The leaves yellow from the base. You tug on a fan, and it pulls away soft and smelling sour. So here's your test on planting day. Set the plant in the hole, backfill, and then run your finger down a fan of leaves until you hit soil. You should reach the point where the leaves turn white, that blanched base, right at or just barely under the surface. If your finger is buried past the first knuckle before you find it, lift the plant and start over. And if you're standing in your garden right now with a daylily that's been leafy but bloomless for years, don't rip it out. Scrape the soil back from the base in early spring. If you have to dig down to find the crown, lift the whole clump and replant it high. I've seen daylilies that hadn't flowered in 5 years throw a full set of scapes the very next summer after nothing more than being raised an inch. That's how much this matters. Quick one, if you actually want a step-by-step guide for all this, maybe your plant's struggling or you just can't get it to bloom, I put every fix into one cheat sheet. You get everything in my Plant Fix and Bloom cheat sheet. It's the first link in the description. Let's continue. Number 2. Starve it on purpose. This one goes against every instinct you have, so stay with me. Daylilies earned their reputation as unkillable plants in ditches, old cemeteries, and roadside banks, places with lean, unimproved, sometimes downright miserable soil. That's not a coincidence. That's the recipe. When you plant a daylily into a bed loaded with compost, manure, and a generous scoop of balanced fertilizer, you're not being generous. You're rewiring the plant's priorities. High nitrogen tells a daylily one thing: grow leaves, and it obeys. You get a lush, deep green fountain of foliage, tall, soft, and floppy, and dramatically fewer flowers because the plant sees no reason to reproduce when life is this easy. Worse, all that soft, nitrogen-fed tissue is exactly what crown rot and daylily rust love to move into. Soft growth is weak growth. Now flip it. A daylily in ordinary, unamended garden soil grows slower and tighter. The foliage is shorter and stiffer, the crown stays firm, and the plant channels its energy into scapes and buds, because in lean conditions, blooming is how it survives long-term. Mild stress is the signal that triggers flowering. Comfort is the signal that suppresses it. So here's the actual protocol, and it's almost embarrassing how little there is to it. At planting, no fertilizer in the hole. None. Ordinary soil, dug loose. That's it. From year 2 onward, if your soil is genuinely poor, sandy, pale, lifeless, You can toss a single light handful of low-nitrogen fertilizer around the clump in early spring, something where the first number on the bag is the smallest. If your soil is average or better, skip feeding entirely. Forever. I mean that. The gardeners with the most spectacular daylily borders are almost never the ones with a feeding schedule. They're the ones who planted well once and then had the discipline to leave the plant slightly hungry. If you remember nothing else from this video, a daylily that's a little bit hungry blooms. A daylily that's well fed sulks. Number 3. Water like you're training an athlete. Everyone tells you daylilies are drought tolerant. Nobody tells you that drought tolerance isn't something the plant comes with. It's something you build in the first summer, and how you water in those first few months decides whether your daylily can genuinely be forgotten later or whether it'll always be dependent on you. Here's what's happening underground. A daylily stores water and energy in thick, fleshy roots. Some varieties have roots that look almost like little sweet potatoes. Those storage roots are the plant's survival account, but roots only grow where water is. If you water your new daylily a little bit every day or two, all the moisture lives in the top 3 inches of soil, so that's where the roots stay. Shallow roots, shallow reserves. The first real heat wave after you go on holiday, that plant crisps. Instead, train it. For the first summer only, water deeply, and I mean a slow soak, a full watering can or a hose trickling at the base for several minutes, enough to push moisture 8 to 10 inches down. And then don't water again until the top 2 inches of soil are properly dry. In most climates, that's once a week, maybe less. Each cycle of deep soak followed by genuine drying forces the roots to chase the moisture downward. By the end of that first season, you've built a root system that reaches into soil that never fully dries out. And then, this is the part people can't bring themselves to do, from the second year on, you stop. No routine watering at all. Rain handles it. The only exception is a brutal multi-week drought right when the plant is in bud, because buds are the one thing a stressed daylily will sacrifice first. One deep soak in bud season in a drought year, and you're done. If you've been hand watering an established daylily every few days, you haven't been helping it. You've been keeping it dependent, keeping the crown damp, and quietly inviting rot. Wean it off. It'll be better for it, and so will you.
Number 4. Break the donut. Here's the secret I promised you at the start, the one behind the most common daylily complaint in the world. It bloomed beautifully for years, and then it just stopped. Walk up to an old daylily clump that's gone quiet and look straight down at it. You'll see something strange, a ring of healthy green fans around the outside, and in the middle, nothing. Bare soil or a mat of tired, weak little fans. Growers call it the donut, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. Here's why it happens. A daylily expands outward. Every year, new fans form on the outer edge of the crown, pushing into fresh soil. The center of the clump, meanwhile, is the oldest part of the plant. The soil there is exhausted, the crown tissue is old and woody, and the fans packed in there are fighting each other for the same depleted resources. The clump keeps getting wider, but the productive zone is only that outer ring. Eventually, the whole thing is spending more energy maintaining a crowded, dying core than making flowers. Bloom count falls off a cliff, and no amount of feeding or watering fixes it, because the problem isn't nutrition, it's architecture. The fix is division, and it's nowhere near as scary as it sounds, because a daylily is close to impossible to kill by dividing. Every 3 to 5 years, or the moment you spot that donut forming, dig up the whole clump in early spring just as the new leaves emerge, or in late summer after blooming winds down. Get a fork under it, lever it out, and hose the soil off so you can see what you're working with. Then pull or cut it apart into pieces with 3 or 4 fans each, and here's the ruthless part. Throw the woody center away. That old core is spent. It owes you nothing more. Keep the vigorous outer divisions, replant them, crown 1 inch deep, remember secret 1, and each of those pieces will bloom like a brand new plant, because functionally, it is one. One overgrown clump usually gives you 6, 8, 10 strong divisions. So this secret doesn't just rescue a fading plant, it's a free daylily factory running on a 5-year cycle for the rest of your life. Number 5. Snap the scapes. Last one, and it takes about 90 seconds a week in midsummer. It might be the highest return minute and a half in your entire garden. Every daylily flower lasts a single day. That's literally what the name means. And when each flower collapses, the plant faces a decision: abandon that spent bloom or turn it into a seed pod. Left alone, it chooses seeds. You'll see them a week or so after a flower fades, a fat green three-sided pod swelling where the bloom used to be. Here's what that pod costs. Ripening seed is one of the most expensive things a plant can do, and a daylily funds it by pulling energy that was earmarked for two things: the rest of this season's buds and next year's flower count. A clump that's allowed to set pods freely will noticeably shorten its own bloom season, and, this is the part almost nobody connects, come back weaker the following summer, because the reserves it should have banked in those fleshy roots over autumn got spent on seeds you never wanted. So as you walk past, pick off the spent wilted flowers with a quick twist. They come away clean. And once a scape, that's the tall flower stalk, has finished its very last bud, grip it low and snap it off at the base, or cut it if it resists. A finished scape is dead weight. Removing it tells the plant to redirect everything into the crown and roots. That's the plant's winter savings account, and it's exactly what fuels the explosion of blooms you'll get next June. Do this through July and August, and you'll often get a bonus nobody promises you. On rebloomers, and even on some varieties that aren't supposed to rebloom, the plant answers by pushing up a late second round of scapes. Flowers in September purely because you didn't let it waste the summer making seeds. So there it is. Plant the crown 1 inch deep, no deeper. Keep the soil lean and skip the fertilizer. Water deep and rare in year 1, and then hand the job over to the rain. Break the donut every few years and throw the tired center away. And snap those scapes before the seed pods steal next summer's show. Notice what's missing from that list? Daily care, weekly care, any care at all really for most of the year? That's the whole point. A daylily set up right doesn't need you, and that's not neglect, that's good gardening. If this changed how you look at that clump in your yard, hit the like button so this reaches another gardener staring at a daylily that won't bloom. Subscribe and ring the bell, because on this channel we do this every week. Real fixes for real plants, no fluff. And tell me in the comments, is your daylily blooming its heart out, or has it gone quiet on you? Describe what it's doing and I'll tell you which of these 5 secrets it's begging for. Revive it, then make it bloom. I'll see you in the next one.